Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming. I am Benny. I have been around for a while. I've been doing tech for a long time. I know that none of you are here to hear my story, so I'm not going to go deep into it. If you want to talk about it, come talk to me. You can also find me on the internets in various places or just email me. I know that we're not supposed to talk about Twitter anymore, but Blue Sky or Mastodon or wherever else you want to be, I'm around. I am going to cover a little bit of the history for anybody that's not intimately familiar. So I don't go back too far though. From around 2004 to around 2019, for anybody that was not familiar with the enterprise Linux ecosystem, this is kind of how it looked. There is an image on the internet that will show you the millions and millions of branches that come from RHEL, and it is amazing. I didn't put it up here because this is really the one that I care about. It was Fedora, where all of the play and development and playground stuff happens, and then RedHat would pull a release and ship RedHat Enterprise Linux in some form. And then from that, we would get CentOS. CentOS was built to be exactly what RedHat was, right? Then in 2019, RedHat introduced this new thing called CentOS Stream. CentOS Stream sits between Fedora and RedHat. It is, I actually have a picture for that too. It is, honestly, from my perspective, it does incredible things for the ecosystem. I think that the way that RedHat announced it did itself a disservice, but honestly, Stream has been a really cool place to kind of see how RedHat is going to engage with a new community, or the community that existed in a new way, right? And then in December of 2020, they announced that they would no longer be providing downstream CentOS. So CentOS Stream would continue to exist, and CentOS Linux, which is the downstream one, would no longer exist. That impacted industries across the world. It impacted everybody from science to home users to where I got my start, which is web hosting. It was just a massive upset for a number of different industries that were both for-profit and not-for-profit. So Cloud Linux, led by the CEO, Igor Soletsky, he's been around in the RHEL ecosystem forever. Cloud Linux has been building a hardened RHEL operating system for more than 10 years at this point. In January, he announced he was going to throw $1 million behind a new version of Linux that would take the place of the historic CentOS that we had all relied on. Because he saw, especially in the hosting industry, how upset it was going to be, like how much change it was going to cause, and wanted to help with that solution. By March, we had set up a nonprofit to own and manage everything and had our initial sponsors set. This one. So this is what it looked like from March of 2021 to June of this year. So Stream would get the stuff from Fedora, Stream would go into RedHat, and then we would rebuild RedHat. Our initial board and sponsors were, this is all from March of 2021. I don't know how many of you know, but it's Jack, Simon, Jesse, Igor, and Eugene were the first board. They were obviously appointed because it's a brand new nonprofit. We couldn't have an election, but that was always the intention, was to have an election that would bring a true community feel to AlmaLinux. Our initial list of sponsors was people who were actively engaged for one reason or another. Progress Chef is there because I was there. cPanel is there because Jesse was there. Cloud Linux is there because Igor and Eugene were there. AWS was one of our biggest backers immediately because of their open source program. So they gave us build hardware and resources. We quickly expanded from there. Right after that, we got ARM, Equinix, the open source lab at Oregon State University, and High Velocity. Those were build resources and mirror resources that made it possible for us to actually distribute the operating system in a way that used all of that resources, in a way that reached the community that it needed to reach. We also, actually 2 years ago at this event, announced a project where we worked with Oracle to set up this thing called Elevate. Elevate allows you to upgrade in place between major versions. So it was a way for people who were on CentOS 7 to upgrade from there without having to migrate everything. We worked with, like I said, Oracle and all of the other distros you see here to make it possible for anybody who was marooned to go and upgrade their stuff. They also were migrating between operating systems, obviously, and that, while as a good sysadmin, you will always test before you do it, I have personally talked to people who have used this to migrate 50,000 servers plus, so I know it's possible, and it's an incredible feat because it is everybody coming together to make this work. Just to explain the diagram a little bit, CentOS Stream 8 to 9 is still in development. Oracle Linux 8 to 9, you have to use their utility instead of Elevate. They have one that they forked off. But everything else is amazing from my perspective. Just because as a CentOS user, we had a lot of problems, right? Because every time there was a new version, we all had to migrate our stuff. We felt that pain, so this is one of the things that we wanted to solve. We've seen a massive amount of growth. You can't actually see these numbers probably, but the bar over there, that top number is 600,000. This is count me data from our mirror system. So our 300 plus servers in the mirror system, after January of 2021, it was like late December, we released Count Me as an optional thing. So if you had a CentOS 8.5 or a higher server, then you could enable Count Me data as you installed or as you updated. So this is all servers that have been had Count Me data enabled, and then are calling home to us for updates. Obviously, if you have your own mirror or you are, I guess natting doesn't influence it, but there's certainly doesn't cover every use case, right? So that's super exciting. Like, that number to me tells me that we are solving a problem that users have and need solved. Yeah, I went looking at my notes to make sure I covered everything. Covering 2.5 years of work in this amount of time is not easy, but like, here's the general gist. Well into this year, we've been working extremely hard with all kinds of stuff. Ooh, screensaver, love it. Thanks to our friends at ARM and Ampere, we were able to get Raspberry Pi and like Arch 64 images out. We've got PowerPC. Thanks to our friends at Sine Nomine, we have S390 support and can build that every time we release. We got images everywhere you want to be, all of the major cloud providers, plus nearly every web hosting provider. So if you're like going to anyone, you'll see us there. If you don't and you want us there, let me know. I can go talk to somebody. We've got WSL has AlmaLinux as an option, which is really fun because Windows running Linux is always hilarious still. We've got UBI compatible images. We've got, and we launched like the geolocation mirror in August of 2021. And that, to me, is most exciting because we're also improving it like in the next few weeks to make it even more stable and even better for everybody that's doing that. Then, and this is probably why most of you are here, 4 months ago, RedHat decided to change things again. Mike McGrath announced that they would no longer be shipping source RPMs for RedHat to get.centos.org like they always had, effectively breaking our pipeline, right? Because we had just been rebuilding RedHat, and without those source RPMs, that was not going to continue to be possible. We took our time to decide what to do from there because, again, we're here filling a need, so we wanted to talk to people who had the need. We had many internal conversations. We had many conversations with our community. We had conversations with our sponsors. We had conversations with the people who are integrating, who've been rebuilding Alma for whatever they need, and said, what do you need from us? And the answer was not one-to-one compatibility. It was, we need to know that when we run a piece of software, it will work both on RedHat and on AlmaLinux. If we've always used it in this ecosystem, we need to make sure that it will work there. And that was easy. So we did essentially what RedHat asked. We are no longer rebuilding RedHat. We are building alongside RedHat using CentOS stream sources. So, my pretty little picture. The thing that I want to make sure is clear here, we are not rebuilding CentOS stream. That's the thing that gets confused a lot. We are pulling sources from CentOS stream just like RedHat does, but releasing at the same cadence and with the same updates that RedHat does. RHEL compatibility for us means we're no longer, one-to-one with RHEL. We're not building from RHEL sources. There will be deviations, but we're limiting them as much as possible. Updates are recreated, like I said, from the CentOS stream repos, or sometimes we pull them from UEI images, sometimes we pull them from upstream directly. Anytime we're patching something, there is a note in the code that tells you exactly where we pulled it from. And like which one ends up being pulled from is almost always just where we can get it first. So whoever's got it out there first is what we're pulling from. We're focused on making sure that there are no breaking changes between RedHat Enterprise Linux and AlmaLinux. Again, that's the thing that our community needs, is an operating system that continues to work in the way that they expect. Yeah, making sure that our delivery stays as good as it is, because we're still, one of the things as CentOS users that always bothered us was getting updates from CentOS and RedHat 6 to 8 months behind RedHat's updates. So we're still focused on getting stuff out the door, but stably, securely, fully tested. The track record we've had thus far was 1 to 2 days. There was one occasion where we saw the updates in the repos, built and tested, and were ready to release, and then realized RedHat had not yet announced. So we waited, because that's not cool, man. So, like, we're obviously very proud of what we're doing, but still focused on stability and security, and will not sacrifice those for speed, because that doesn't make sense for anybody. 99% of all the Alma packages at this point are still exact duplicates of RHEL. We're just pulling the code, like I said, from CentOS stream or UBI images. There's about 24% of those packages that require manual patching. But like I said, if that's true, you'll see exactly where the patches come from. Less than 1% of packages that differ from RHEL are all kernel. All of those differences are kernel. And RedHat said that the kernel updates were going to be the problem for everyone, right? When they announced their changes, they said that was going to be the hardest part. And the reason for that is that the changes that RedHat made, you can't get those kernel updates without violating their agreements. So what we do is we pull the security patches, because we can get those from various sources, right? If nothing else, we can find them when Oracle releases them. And we get those out the door. And then what happens with features will end up being what is driven by our community. So if somebody in our community says, hey, I've got this feature or this bug that needs to be adjusted or fixed or whatever, then we'll work in a way that would not violate our commitment to be ABI compatible, but will still solve the problem for the community, for the peoples that need it. Coming up next, man, I am flying through this thing. This is great. So we have still an incredibly active community, and there's still lots of stuff going on. even with the drama. So let's talk about that. From the technical perspective, we've got 2 new repos that we set up specifically as a result of the changes in June. So because we can now deviate from RedHat, which is the most exciting thing that has happened, we are able to do things in a way that is better for our community. So, for example, the microcode AMD exploits that were announced and patched that RedHat took a little bit of extra time to get out the door. We were able to get them pulled in, tested, and out the door about a week ahead of them because we were working with our community, and everyone that we were talking to said, we need these now, though. So we expedited those security patches. There was another one with iPerf where we got it patched and out the door earlier because it was really important for the people that were using AlmaLinux. The other one we have is called Synergy. Synergy is for extra packages. If you are familiar with the RedHat ecosystem, you are also familiar with Apple. The one commitment that we've made with Synergy is that it will never conflict with Apple, because that doesn't make any sense. These are going to be for packages for our community who specifically have a request or a need. There are, I think, only a few in there right now because Apple exists, but the first one that we did was called Warpinator. It is a file sharing application that one of our community members said wanted to build because they had used it in the Debian ecosystem and needed it, well, wanted it for Alma, and they were learning how to build packages anyway, so they built Warpinator. The other one was Pantheon. If you've ever used Pantheon as a desktop manager, DE, desktop environment, then you either love it or hate it. I have never seen anybody that's like lukewarm about it, but that was, again, something that they wanted, so they built it, and it's in Synergy now. We'll have AlmaLinux 8.9 and 9.3 updates this month. The betas will come out this month. I think, realistically, maybe even this week, but we'll see. This is our first release where we're building differently, right? So we're taking extra time to make sure that we're building everything exactly right, and it's going to be stable. But we'll get the betas out, and then the releases will be sometime next month after RHEL does. We got FIP certification. 9.2 is in the process of being certified. The way that FIP certification works, 9.2 will actually be end of life before its official certification, because the way the government works, it's very, very slow. We started last December, but it's whatever. We're already on what's called the MIP list, which is just the final step before we're officially certified, so that'll be fine. We'll get updated CIS benchmarks. We'll get more SIGs. We'll get, one of the things that we're hearing from the community is that they want like official hardware and software support. So we're working with hardware and software vendors to get official support, whatever that looks like. Maybe it's just being listed on the website as we officially support AlmaLinux. Maybe it's coming in as like a certified thing where we get a hardware and software certification SIG set up. Again, that's going to be what people need, right? The mirror system, we've got, I know it's kind of vague on here, but if you want details about the mirror system updates, come upstairs either later today or tomorrow and talk to Jonathan. He has been hard at work to make the mirror system more stable and better. I am pushing him to put together a talk about it because the work that he's doing is amazing, and it's going to make the mirror system so much better. We've got an election coming up. So, like I said, the board is elected by members of the foundation. We're up to just over 400 members in the AlmaLinux Foundation. One of the things that we felt as users of CentOS is that we didn't really get to have a voice in the future of CentOS, and so that's one of the things we're fixing. You, as users of AlmaLinux, are welcome to come join. Individual membership is free because I want you to have a voice. It is important to me that whoever the users and the drivers of AlmaLinux have the ability to have a voice in the decisions. So if you were, at any point, if we decided we wanted to change the structure of the foundation or adjust things in ways that are far beyond what we've been doing, then that would have to be agreed to by the members of the foundation. And that's where the membership becomes extremely important. To that end, we've actually decided to expand the board by 2 seats, and are holding another election in December, even though we just held one last year, because it's time. With the additional investment of both the build process and just the community in general, it's time to expand the board to more voices, so that we get all of the input from the people that we need. And then we're gonna expand sponsorship opportunities. So right now, sponsorship is limited, kind of, like corporate sponsorship is kind of limited. You can come in at one of 3 tiers, or you can just become a backer by giving us hardware or build resources or something like that. I wanna expand that so that companies that care about AlmaLinux have the ability to invest in the future of AlmaLinux at a stage that matches what they are able to contribute. So we'll be having fun with that too. My friend Joe Brockmeyer at Ohio Linux Fest this year gave a keynote, and one of the things, like the thesis of his keynote was, open source is not a spectator sport. So if you are using open source and you are invested in open source, then you should show up in whatever way you can. Sometimes that means contributing translations. Sometimes that means throwing $5 into a GitHub sponsorship, because that's what I do. I'm very busy, so you get $5 from me if I like you. That doesn't mean, this isn't me saying, come support AlmaLinux. It is me saying, if you care about open source, which most people at this event do, show up for your projects in whatever way you can. That's super important. And then 2 days ago, John O'Bacon said a thing that, just yesterday, John O'Bacon said a thing at the Community Leadership Summit that really resonated with me, which is community is a network of minds. So as we're building any project, whether it's this one or something else, you showing up and providing input is the way for us to make sure that we are all accounted for in a community. Show up, provide your perspective and your input, and it will improve the process and it will improve the project. So, to that end, if you want to get involved, these are the ways right now that you can do it. As the person who has been at the highest number of events this year for AlmaLinux, I think it's, do you know how many? My husband's in the front row. I think we're at 10. So, yeah, I don't know. It's a large number. So as a person who cannot be expanded, like I don't scale, right? So I am really hoping to start bringing in community members to help us staff a booth. I don't have to be at every event. Somebody else that cares about AlmaLinux can absolutely stand at a booth and talk about AlmaLinux all day. If you're doing something cool with Alma, come write a blog post about it. One of our friends from University of California, Santa Barbara just wrote a blog post for us about how he's using AlmaLinux in image building. You can help with our cloud image automation. As we're building cloud images for each release, we're improving the automation just every time. Follow us on social media platforms, help us with translations for the website, answer questions on the forums. There's all kinds of ways to engage in an open source project that are able to meet what you have in terms of time and resources. So come join. And you already heard my pitch about the foundation. If you care about the future of AlmaLinux, come join. It's super important to me that you're there. We also have all of the places that you can hang out with us. The chat is #1 place. That's where we all congregate and we all talk shit. It's very fun. And then I'll just say, thank you for your love of open source. Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening to me. And that is literally the shortest this talk has ever been.